everybody. My name is Ashley, and I am a pediatric occupational therapist. And my YouTube channel is all about helping to provide strategies and tips and education to parents as well as fellow caregivers and occupational therapists who work with children, especially children in those early stages of life, early stages of childhood. I primarily right now work in early intervention, which is a state program for children 3 and under, and it provides a multitude of different therapies and resources and supports for children that have developmental delays. So, in this live video today, I just wanted to come on and briefly share about transitions. So, transitions can be one of the most difficult things or obstacles that a lot of parents as well as therapists face when working with children. And so, I want to share 5 different tips that you all can use in order to help your child transition. So, one of the first tips that I recommend is using what's known as first then language. So it's basically just like what it sounds like. So if your child, for example, wants to engage with Play-Doh, but you're trying to get your child to imitate lines or circles or things of that nature, using first then language would sound something like, okay, first we're gonna trace this line and then you can do your Play-Doh. So you can use language like that, or you can also use first then schedules. So basically, the first then schedule would have 2 different pictures of the tasks that are ahead of you all. So the first picture would be the thing that you are trying to get the child to engage in, and then the second picture for then would be the thing that that child wants to engage in. So the reason why this strategy is helpful is because it's not telling the child that they cannot do what they prefer to do or not do what they want to do. It's basically telling the child that, hey, we can do what you want to do, but first, this is something that we have to finish. So that is one strategy that you can use. The second strategy that you can use to help children with transitions is by using a visual schedule. So a visual schedule is basically a picture representation of the things that you want your child to be able to accomplish or get through in a certain time period. So you can have a visual schedule, for example, for the morning routine and say, okay, first we're going to brush our teeth, then we're going to get dressed, and then we're going to have breakfast, right? So that your child knows these are the 3 things that I have to do to complete my morning routine. And if you have a visual representation, it kind of helps that child understand what's expected of them and when something is starting, when something is ending. And so sometimes that will help a lot with that child's regulation and help a lot with that child's attention if you can have a visual schedule for them that outlines what it is that needs to get done. This is also very helpful if your child has a therapist and the child has difficulty with transitioning inside of the therapy session. You may want to recommend to your therapist to try using a visual schedule to help that child navigate and get through the planned activities. You can also, or I highly recommend that you use pictures that are actually like pictures of what that child has. So instead of you just printing off random like Google pictures, use pictures that your child actually can associate with or relate to the things they actually have. So take pictures of common things that your child does throughout the day, and then you can make a schedule out of those things for your child. So we talked about using first then language. We talked about using a visual schedule. The third way that you can help your child with transitions is to use a visual timer. So a visual timer is another tool that you can use to help your child transition from one thing to the next. So for children who don't have a lot of issue with like having a phone present, there is an app that I like to use. It's called the Children's Countdown Timer. And on that app, it's basically like a timer, but it has a picture, like a hidden picture behind it. And so as the time slowly draws out, a picture is slowly revealed. And then when that picture is popped up or when the picture is fully revealed, that means that, time is all done, right? Time is up. So having that visual representation of when time is up will also help a child with understanding like we're all done and it's time to stop this and then move on to something else. It also helps a child understand how long they're expected to engage in an activity. Because sometimes the problem with transitions or trying to get a child to engage in something is the fact that children don't understand this concept of time. So they don't understand that all I have to do is put these three puzzle pieces in and then I can move on to something else. They have no idea what to expect when it comes to that time issue. So by having like a visual schedule and like a timer present, it kind of helps set up that expectation for them. So those are three things that you can try: using a first then language, using a visual schedule, using a visual timer. The next thing that you can try using is music and movement. So you can find out your child's favorite song and then you can play that song when it's time to transition from one thing to the next. A lot of us have heard of the cleanup song, right? Clean up, everybody, everywhere. That's an example of a transitional song. So you can use that song or you can use a song that your child really likes and start to help your child connect the dots so that they understand, oh, when we play this song or when we sing this song, that means we're all done with this activity and we're going to move on to a new activity. Also, incorporating movement can also help too. So having your child to do like some animal walks from one thing to the next or do a silly dance from one thing to the next. All of those things, incorporating music with movement, is going to make that transition piece a lot easier for kids, and it's also going to give them that movement break that they may be needing in order to reset for them to move on to something else. And this is especially helpful if you have been working with your child and they have been really engaged in something that is structured, or something that is that takes a lot of brain work, a brain power to really focus on. So giving them those opportunities for movement and incorporating some of that music, that can help with that can help that child to transition a lot smoother. So far we've talked about 4 different strategies to helping a child transition. So we've talked about using first then language or a first then picture schedule. We've talked about using a visual schedule in general, just outlining the things that the child has to do, but using a visual or a picture representation of those things. We've talked about a visual timer, so using a timer so that the child understands how much time they have until something is all done or how much time they have until it's time to clean up and move on to something else. And then we just mentioned music and movement as another way to help a child transition. So the fifth and final way that I'm going to just share with you is called a transitional tool. So a transitional tool can be something that a child, let's say a child really, really likes a stuffed animal, right? So you can use that stuffed animal to get that child to move from one thing to the next. So you can either have that child have that preferred item or stuffed animal with them while they're doing an activity, and then when the activity is all done, you can say, hey, we're going to have you and your stuffed animal move to the next station, right? Or you can already have the stuffed animal in your possession and then move the stuffed animal to the next station or the next activity or routine that you want your child to get to. And so you can say, oh, we're all done with this. Oh, look over there. There's your stuffed animal. Let's go over there and get it. And so when they go over there and get it, that's when you start the new activity in the new area. So it's all about trying as much as possible to set that expectation for the child, for you to help them understand what those expectations are. So that's why those visual schedules come into place, because then they can visually see for themselves what it is that you're expecting. You can also use those visual timers so they understand that concept of time. You know, it's hard for little ones to understand what time is. So by having that visual representation of it, it helps a lot better. And then that music and movement and those transitional tools just helps a lot with that sensory piece, that sensory regulation, helping children move from one thing to the next, and then it provides them with a sense of comfort as well. And so those are 5 different strategies or tips that you can use to help your child transition from one thing to the next. So I hope those tips were very helpful for you. Let me know if you have any further questions about these different strategies or different tips. And I hope these tips are helpful for you and your little ones. So that's all I have for you today on today's live. I will be returning with some more strategies and tips on child development and just helping children in those early stages of life. So be sure to subscribe and follow my channel. It's AshtheOT. That is where I provide more education and information in regards to early childhood. I talk a lot about sensory processing. I talk a lot about child development tips and strategies. I even share like different activity ideas. And I also have some videos on there for occupational therapists, which is what I am, just providing you some overall just insight into what it is to be an occupational therapist and everything that kind of comes along with that as well. So thank you so much for tuning in to this live. Be sure to subscribe to AshtheOT, and I will see you guys on the next live. See ya.